Okay, let's dive straight into 1 Kings chapter 20. It's quite a dramatic sequence of events we see here.
Oh, absolutely. It's really packed with surprises, isn't it? You get power politics, you get military action, and then these quite unexpected divine interventions.
Right. So it kicks off with this major threat facing Israel. You've got Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram.
Syria, basically.
Yeah, Aram Damascus. And he shows up with this, well, the text calls it a massive army.
It really emphasizes the scale. 32 other kings allied with him, horses, chariots, the whole works.
A whole 9 yards. And they're laying siege to Samaria, which is Israel's capital.
So the scene is set for this overwhelming show of force. I mean, from a purely military perspective, Israel looks completely doomed right from the start.
It feels like an impossible situation for Ahab, the king of Israel.
Definitely. You'd think, okay, this is going to be a straightforward siege story, maybe a heroic defense, maybe a quick surrender.
But it doesn't quite play out like that, does it? It spirals pretty quickly into something much more complex.
It becomes a real test of wills between these two kings,
And then you get these moments of divine action popping up.
which completely shift the balance.
And it all leads up to this decision by King Ahab. A decision that, well, it has consequences that you might not see coming.
Yeah, it really forces you to think beyond just swords and shields and consider, the spiritual layer to all this.
Okay, so let's get into that first confrontation. Ben-Hadad isn't just camping outside. He sends messengers right into Samaria.
And his demands are incredibly bold, just straight out. Your silver and gold are mine, and the best of your wives and children are mine.
Wow. That's not just asking for tribute, is it?
No, it's way beyond that. He's demanding the kingdom's wealth. He's demanding royal hostages, essentially striding at the heart of Israel's future and, their identity.
So Ahab's response here is, well, it's kind of stunning initially.
Yeah, faced with that army outside, he just folds completely.
He sends back a message saying, just as you say, my lord the king, I and all I have are yours.
You can almost feel the desperation there, can't you? He's probably thinking this total submission, however humiliating, might just be enough to satisfy Ben-Hadad and, avoid total destruction.
Appeasement, pure and simple. But it doesn't work.
Not at all. Ben-Hadad seems to take it as weakness. He immediately ramps things up, sends messengers back again.
With the second demand. And this one's different.
Right. This time he says, basically, tomorrow, my officials are coming into your city, into your palace, into your houses, and they're going to search and seize everything they think is valuable.
So it goes from a defined horrible tribute to just open-ended looting.
Exactly. Total humiliation. Plunder dictated entirely by the enemy's whim. They'll take whatever they decide is worth taking. That's a different level of subjugation.
And that demand, that's the line Ahab won't cross, or maybe can't cross.
Seems so. He calls together the elders, the leaders of the land, lays out both demands, what Ben-Hadad asked for first, and this new one.
And ask their advice. What do they say?
They're united. They tell him don't listen to him or agree to his demands. Full stop.
So even under siege, there's a limit to surrender. Maybe it's dignity, maybe it's realizing this guy will never stop asking for more.
Could be both. So Ahab, now backed by his people, sends a new message.
A carefully worded one.
Very careful. He says, essentially, look, I'll do what you asked the first time. He agrees to the silver, gold, wives, children, that painful first offer. But he adds, this demand I cannot meet. He draws the line at the open-ended search and seizure.
Okay, so he accepts the tribute and hostages, but refuses the plunder. How does Ben-Hadad take that?
Badly. He's apparently drinking with his 32 allied kings when he hears this refusal.
Probably not the best state to receive bad news.
Definitely not. He launches into this incredibly arrogant boast, swearing by his gods, basically, that he's going to obliterate Samaria so completely
That there won't even be enough dust left for each of his soldiers to grab a handful.
Pure drunken bravado, total overconfidence.
But Ahab's reply to that boast, it's classic, one of the most memorable lines in the whole chapter.
It really is. He sends back the message, tell him, one who puts on his armor should not boast like one who takes it off.
Basically, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Right.
The fight hasn't even started yet.
Exactly. It's a sharp, witty proverb that cuts right through Ben-Hadad's swagger.
And it works. Or rather, it provoked him. The text says when Ben-Hadad heard that, especially while drinking,
He immediately ordered his men, prepare to attack.
So the verbal sparring is over. The battle's about to begin.
Which leads us straight into the first battle. And this is where things take a very unexpected turn.
Totally unexpected. Because just as the attack is being prepared, a prophet shows up, unannounced.
Just appears before Ahab, not summoned, just there, with a message from the Lord.
And considering the odds, the message is pretty stunning.
Absolutely. He says, "Do you see this vast army? I will give it into your hand today, and then you will know that I am the Lord."
Wow. Okay, so divine intervention promised.
Yeah.
How does Ahab react? Does he just say, great?
Interestingly, no. He reacts like a king, like a military commander almost. He asks us practical questions. Okay, but who is going to do this and who starts the battle? He's still thinking in terms of manpower and tactics, even with this divine guarantee.
Fair enough, I suppose. What does the prophet say?
The answers are, well, they seem designed to show this isn't about Israel's military might.
How so?
He says the victory will come through the young officers of the provincial commanders, a tiny group, just 232 men.
232 guys against that massive army. Seriously.
Seriously. And the second part, who starts the battle?
Yeah.
Ahab himself. The king leads the charge.
You're kidding. The king leading a tiny vanguard. That sounds strategically questionable.
Exactly. It underlines the point, doesn't it? This victory isn't going to be about numbers or tactics Ahab devises. It's God working through completely improbable means.
So everyone knows it was God's doing?
Precisely. So Ahab will know, Israel will know, that this deliverance is from the Lord.
So Ahab actually does it. He gathers the 232 young officers.
Yep, and then another 7,000 Israelites. Still massively outnumbered, of course.
And they march out when?
At noon. Which is interesting timing.
Why? What's Ben-Hadad doing at noon?
He and his 32 buddies are getting drunk in their tents.
Oh, for goodness sake. Not exactly peak readiness for the commanding officers.
Not quite. It adds this layer of almost absurdity to the enemy side.
So the Aramean scouts see these guys coming out of Samaria. They report it. What's Ben-Hadad's order? Attack.
His order is really strange. Remember, he just ordered the attack himself moments before, but now he tells his men, take them alive, whether they have come for peace or war.
Take them alive. Why?
Who knows? Maybe arrogance, thinking he can just scoop them up, maybe the drink talking, but it was a disastrous command. Because the young officers lead the charge, the Israelite army follows, and the text just says starkly, each one struck down his opponent.
So this tiny force just punches right through.
Creates instant chaos. Panic spreads through the Aramean ranks.
And they break.
They break and flee. The Israelites pursue, inflicting heavy losses. Ben-Hadad himself barely escapes on horseback with some cavalry.
Wow. An incredible, totally unexpected victory for Israel.
And attributed directly to the Lord, just as the prophet said. Ahab couldn't miss the point.
But the story doesn't end there, does it? Ben-Hadad got away.
Exactly. And the prophet reappears to Ahab, not with congratulations, but with a warning.
Right now.
He says basically, don't relax, strengthen your position, figure out what needs doing, because next spring, Ben-Hadad is coming back.
Round 2 is already being predicted.
Yep. Meanwhile, back in Aram, Ben-Hadad's officials are trying to figure out what on earth happened. How did they lose so badly?
They must have been scratching their heads.
They come up with this interesting analysis. It's kind of a mix of military strategy and theology.
Go on.
Their conclusion is, their gods are gods of the hills. That is why they were too strong for us.
Wait, they think Israel's God is geographically limited, like a local deity who only works in high places.
That seems to be their reasoning. They look at Israel's terrain, maybe past battles, and decide God's power stops at the foot of the mountains.
So their brilliant plan for the next attack is?
Change the venue. They tell Ben-Hadad, next time, fight them on the plains. We'll be stronger there because their hill god won't be able to help them.
That's quite a theological gamble.
Well,
did they have any actual military advice too?
Oh yeah, some sensible stuff too. They advise him to replace the 32 allied kings, who probably weren't reliable commanders.
Right, they were busy getting drunk.
With professional officers. And to raise a new army, just as big as the first one.
And Ben-Hadad goes for it.
Hook, line, and sinker. He implements the whole plan. New officers, new massive army. And next spring, he marches them to Aphek.
Aphek.
On the plains.
Likely chosen specifically because it was flat ground, fitting their new strategy.
Okay, so the rematch is set. How does Israel look this time?
Still completely outnumbered, the text paints this vivid picture. The Israelites look like two small flocks of goats, while the Arameans covered the countryside. So despite the last victory, the odds still look impossible.
Visually, yes. But then, guess who shows up again?
Let me guess. A man of God.
You got it. Comes to Ahab with another message from the Lord. And this message directly tackles the Arameans' strategy.
What does it say?
It spells out why God is giving them the victory this time. Because the Arameans think the Lord is a God of the hills and not a God of the valleys, I will deliver this vast army into your hands, and you will know that I am the Lord.
So God's basically saying, oh, you think I'm only powerful on hills? Watch this. It's about demonstrating his universal power.
Precisely. It's not just about winning the battle. It's about correcting this fundamental misunderstanding about who God is.
Okay, so the armies face off. For how long?
They camp opposite each other for 7 days, a standoff. Then on the 7th day, the battle begins.
And the result?
Even more devastating for Aram than the first battle. The Israelites inflict, get this, 100,000 casualties on the Aramean foot soldiers in 1 day.
100,000. That's an almost unbelievable number for ancient warfare.
It's staggering, and it doesn't stop there. The survivors flee into the city of Aphek, and the city wall collapses on 27,000 more of them.
The wall collapses. Falls down.
That's what the text says. It feels like this final, overwhelming sign of divine judgment against Aram and their faulty theology. Total destruction.
What happens to Ben-Hadad in all this chaos?
He manages to escape the main battle again, flees into the city, and ends up hiding in an inner room, completely defeated.
So what now for him? His army is gone.
Well, his officials, the ones who survived, come to him with a plan. A desperate last-ditch effort.
What's the plan?
It seems they've heard something about the kings of Israel. They tell Ben-Hadad, look, we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are merciful.
Interesting reputation. So
they suggest they go to Ahab, dressed in sackcloth, with ropes around their necks, signs of complete submission, and begging for life, and plead for Ben-Hadad.
they're going to test this reputation for mercy.
Exactly. So they go find Ahab, looking utterly defeated, and say, your servant Ben-Hadad says, please let me live.
This is the moment, isn't it? After 2 invasions, the arrogance, the threats. How does Ahab respond?
And this is maybe the biggest surprise in the chapter. Ahab asks, is he still alive? He is my brother.
His brother, after everything.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, calling his defeated enemy brother? It signals, well, something other than immediate execution, which would have been pretty standard practice.
Wow. How do the Aramean officials react to that?
They jump on it immediately. Yes, your brother Ben-Hadad, they confirm. And Ahab tells them, go and get him.
So they bring Ben-Hadad out. What happens?
Ahab does something remarkable. He actually has Ben-Hadad come up into his chariot with him.
Treats him like an equal, not a prisoner.
It seems so. An astonishing display of, well, clemency, or maybe political calculation. It's hard to say for sure.
Ben-Hadad must be stunned. Does he say anything?
Oh, yes. Seeing this unexpected mercy, he immediately makes an offer. He promises to return cities his father had captured from Israel.
Okay, giving back territory. Anything else?
Yes, and this is significant. He offers to let Israel set up their own market areas in Damascus, his capital.
Like trade zones. Why is that important?
It gives Israel economic access, a diplomatic presence, a foothold right in the heart of the Aramean kingdom. It's a big concession.
So from a purely political view, Ahab seems to be getting a good deal here. Peace, territory back, economic advantage.
It looks like a pragmatic victory achieved after the military victories. He makes a treaty with Ben-Hadad based on this offer.
And lets him go free.
Sets him free. A decision that seems merciful, maybe even politically savvy on one level.
But there's a but, isn't there?
There's a very big but. This act of mercy, letting go the king God had delivered for destruction, triggers a very dramatic, very harsh prophetic judgment.
Okay, what happens? Another prophet.
Yes, but this one uses a rather extreme method to get his message across. Acting by the word of the Lord, he tells another prophet, a companion, to strike him. Hit him.
Why?
We'll see. But the companion refuses. He won't strike the prophet.
Okay, seems reasonable not to want to hit someone.
Reasonable from a human standpoint, maybe. But the prophet delivers a shocking judgment because the companion disobeyed a direct command from the Lord. He'll be killed by a lion.
And does it happen?
The text says it does. As soon as the companion leaves, a lion finds him and kills him.
Whoa. That seems incredibly severe for just refusing to hit someone.
It really underscores the absolute seriousness of disobeying a direct, specific command from God in this context, even if it seems strange or wrong to us. It sets the stage for the judgment on Ahab.
So what does the first prophet do now?
He finds someone else, tells him the same thing, strike me, and this person actually does it, wounding the prophet.
Why did he need to be wounded?
For his disguise. He bandages himself up, maybe puts dust on his head, makes himself look like a wounded soldier returning from battle.
And then?
He waits by the road for King Ahab to pass by.
Okay, setting up an encounter.
Exactly. And when Ahab comes, the prophet calls out and tells him this story, this parable.
What's the story?
He presents himself as a soldier who was given a crucial task. Guard a specific prisoner. The order was crystal clear. If the prisoner escapes, it's your life for his life. Or you pay a massive fine, a talent of silver.
Life for life or a huge penalty. Got it.
But the prophet says, while he was busy, busy here and there, distracted, the prisoner disappeared.
Uh-oh. So he failed his duty, and he asks Ahab.
He asks Ahab for judgment. What should happen to him?
And Ahab walks right into it, doesn't he?
Completely. Ahab declaims, that is your sentence. You've pronounced it yourself.
Yeah.
He upholds the strict penalty. Life for life, or the fine. The soldier is fully accountable.
And then the prophet reveals himself.
Right then. He takes off the bandages or whatever disguise he had. Ahab recognizes him, and the prophet delivers the Lord's message, applying the very judgment Ahab just made.
Connecting the parable directly to Ahab's actions with Ben-Hadad.
Exactly. The message is devastatingly direct. Thus says the Lord, because you have let go out of your hand the man whom I had devoted to destruction.
The man God determined should die.
Therefore your life shall be for his life, and your people for his people.
Wow. So Ahab's mercy to Ben-Hadad is judged as disobedience.
Right.
God had delivered Ben-Hadad for destruction, and Ahab let him go. The price is Ahab's own life and disaster for Israel.
That's the message. Ahab's political treaty, his act of clemency, directly countermanded what God had intended and miraculously enabled. The consequence is absolute.
How does Ahab take this news? Repentance. Argument.
Neither, it seems. The chapter ends very bluntly. Ahab just goes back to his palace in Samaria, sullen and angry.
Sullen and angry. Not exactly remorseful, just displeased with the verdict.
It's a really powerful, complex ending, isn't it? It shows that leadership decisions have these profound spiritual dimensions and consequences that might override political or even perceived merciful intentions.
It really does make you stop and think. We've gone through this whole chapter, these absolutely impossible victories that are explicitly credited to God.
The enemy's flawed strategy based on trying to figure out God's limits.
Right. And then Ahab's surprising mercy towards this defeated enemy, Ben-Hadad.
Followed immediately by this incredibly stark divine judgment, showing God's plan was actually different.
What really stands out to you when you look back at this? Is it the sheer unlikeliness of the battles? The Arameans thinking God only works on hills. Or maybe the contrast between how God deals with the prophet's companion versus how he deals with Ahab.
There's so much there, isn't there? Questions about obedience, about how we perceive God's power, about the consequences of our choices, even choices that seem good on the surface.
And it leaves us with this final thought to chew on, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have this really complex interplay of power, strategy, human choice, and divine will. So what does Ahab's decision showing mercy when it seems God intended destruction for Ben-Hadad? What does that tell us about the weight of leadership and about how even seemingly good decisions can have unintended, maybe even devastating consequences if they diverge from a path that, in this story at least, seems to have been laid out by God?